got diagnosed with bowel cancer. That was a very hard and stressful time.
Okay, and then so yes, one more. We'll come back and explore these.
So I'd probably later in life, key challenge, you got diagnosed with bowel cancer. That was a very hard and stressful time. I think the worst time of that was finding out, because you knew there was something wrong, but we didn't quite know what it was. We thought you had indigestion or irritable bowel syndrome or something. And yes, you've been not feeling well, you'd gone into accident emergency. None of us really thought, oh, it's going to be bowel cancer. So to get, I can't even remember if the call came from you or mum. I think it might have come from mum, because you were probably unconscious at the time, having been operated on. So to get that call from mum to hear, oh, it's bowel cancer. When you hear that, you have the impression, oh, it's cancer, sort of, that's it.
Yes,
because
that's the end.
That's what everybody always thought. Cancer is non-survivable. Once you know somebody who's in that condition, you start to realize, well, actually, these things are survivable, sometimes despite our health system.
Yes. We'll come back and explore that. And there was a day, though, wasn't there, where I'd been moved?
Well, it was the day later. So I would say that was more of a shock. And you had been operated, emergency operation that night. We'd come to see you immediately after the operation, and you were in a particular bed, in a particular ward at the hospital. And so we sort of knew where you were. I think mum and I came back the next day, went to that ward and went to that bed, and it had all been cleared out, and like all the possessions had been taken away, and no one had told us. In that moment, both of mum and I looked at each other thinking, has he not survived? And fortunately, a nurse quite quickly came over. Oh no, he's been moved to a different ward. And we came and found you on a different ward. But yes, it was a reasonably shocking moment. Thinking, oh, they could have told us.
Good old NHS. Anyway, so coming back to some of those challenges, thinking about what you have learned from them. You've already discussed a bit about the first challenge, which was sort of the bullying and potentially sort of feeling you're underachieving. And you said that was all sort of a stream from secondary school onwards. What do you think you learned? You said a bit about sort of you learn behaviors, and then you've got to reassess them.
I mean, to a certain extent, every experience you go through is a learning opportunity, and it has its good side and its bad side. So what I learned from that particular period in life, and possibly some of the earlier stuff in life as well, with some of those, experiences of people not treating you so well, is you learn a great value of resilience, that nothing's going to knock you down, or if something does knock you down, you're just going to get back up again and go again. So I don't regret any of those experiences, because I learned a lot from them. But what it can do is write a script, almost a script into your mind, or I'm a computer person, so like something into your operating system that says, oh, you're not quite good enough, or everyone else is better than you and you're not quite an achiever. Now, you really have to reflect on that when you're older, and revisit that when you're older, to realize how completely irrational that is. And it's just not helpful for you. And you have to then go through that process and untie that in order to be able to move forward.
So how can you think of how you sort of, you went off and you did a Open University degree and then a master's. So was that were you thinking that I'm deliberately untying, or you just did it and then?
No, that's not. Those things help, but they don't necessarily untie the elastic. The untying of the elastic is much more about taking some time out to stop and reflect. I would have said meditation. You would have said prayer.
Yeah.
But it's a similar, it doesn't matter how you frame it. It's taking some time out, some space in your hectic life where the brain is working all the time. You've just got to take some time to slow the brain down, allow it to reflect on those things, and then it's a difficult process, because if you intentionally go in and say, I'm going in to untie that bit of elastic, that will never happen.
Yeah.
You sort of just got to let the mind open, and it will find its own bits of elastic that it realizes it needs to untie.
Yeah.
And then you untie them, and the feeling from that can often be quite revelatory.
Yeah. And revealing, and then helps you move forward as well. What about the role of, because that's very individualistic. So I think the meditation, the prayer, whatever we call it, is important. But what about other people's role as well? Do you?
So I think that comes back to some of the things I was saying earlier about your own perception of your own worldview. I think you would call it your own perception of the world and how the world works in reality. And coming back to the sort of club foot guy, he was genuinely trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
I've seen some people with club feet before, so you must have a club foot. And a lot of people jump to those assumptions. I've seen this before. This must be the reason I'm going to be helpful. But they're only seeing that from their reasonably small worldview. And everyone has a reasonably small worldview, however good you are at meditating or praying or trying to expand that worldview. So the only way you can actually then get closer to real reality, if we want to call it that, is to go and speak to other people and really actively listen to other people about what their worldview is, because it's the combination of everybody's worldview that moves you towards reality.
That's really good. I think so. It's actually trying to get other people's perspectives, then helps you.
It helps you to broaden your own perspective.
Okay, so I'm fascinated because I don't think we've ever discussed this before, actually. How you see my disability and how you see that other people being affected by it. Because the interesting thing is, I don't see my disability. Because I look at the world through my eyes.
That's right.
I don't see the way I walk.
You never see your own face.
I remember the first time I saw it was your wedding video.
Right.
I thought, oh my gosh, is that how I walk? It was a real shock. So I'd just like to explore the impact. You said, it was a bit of a struggle, people dealing with how they saw me. First of all, how did you see me? Because a lot of our close friends, you will know, say after a bit, oh, well, I don't really see your disability. Yeah. And I know that with David and his red mark. Do you know what I mean? You sort of see it when you
first meet him.
Yeah.
But as with anyone's, as you would call it, different ability, which I think is a great way of describing a disability, because it's not a disability.
We all have disabilities.
We all have disabilities, and your disability has shaped the person that you are. And so it's not a disability, it's just a different ability, and we all have different abilities. Wouldn't it be so dull if everyone was exactly the same? It'd just be terrible. So it's an essential part of the world. And as you say, how did I see your disability? I never saw your disability because I never knew you without your disability. You're just Andrew, and it's part of you. And you sort of took my answer with the friends, is when people first see you, they're sort of shocked by the way you walk. But once they get to know you, they don't even see it. And that's proof if I'm going around Sells and Sainsbury's. A lot of people will come up to me and say, hi, Andy. Because they know you, They don't even see the fact that I'm walking normally or differently
Staggering on a trolley.
to the way you're normally
Depends how
walking.
many Guinnesses you've had.
Well, precisely. And but they don't. They just don't, see it.
No.
They just don't see it. They see me exactly the same as you. You probably answer to the name Tim as much as I answer to the name Andy, because it's just interchangeable. And you then try to figure out, have I seen that person before? Do I know them, or does Andy know them? Do I say, no, I'm Tim, not Andy? Or do I, and sometimes I say that and they say, no, but it was you I met. And I'm thinking, oh, God.
So I'll just come back as a human story and we will go back. But there was that time where we shared a hairdresser, didn't we, when we were younger, and you were getting married. And the hairdresser, I'd gone in and the hairdresser had gone, oh, how's Christelle? And I thought, do I say, oh, no, you've got the wrong one? So I said, okay, oh, no, she's fine. And then you'd gone in the day after, I think. And he'd gone, oh, I think your twin might be having an affair with my wife. So sort of some of the difficulties you can get
as a twin, as an identical twin.
Yeah. But okay, I think it's really interesting. So I think your perspective on it is interesting. So just let me ask you, did you see unfairnesses in the world that I faced?
I do see unfairnesses in the world that you face, but I wouldn't put them over and above any other unfairnesses other people see, whether it be because of their disability, because of their race, their sexuality, any of those sorts of things. Everyone has elements of them that can lead to them being discriminated against. And that's just why, and that all comes back to this worldview thing. If it's all to do with the narrowness, club foot, it's all to do with the narrowness of worldview.
Yeah.
And really what we should be trying to do as human beings is expand our worldview by talking and listening to others and piecing the jigsaw together.
Okay. Interesting. So tell me what you think you learned from my cancer journey, and not only that, but I think that, let me give you my perspective. I think sometimes it's harder for the people who are going round, the carers, than it is for the victim, because there's so much happening to the victim, as it were. It's not the victim, but the person who's ill, the patient. That you just get on with the next thing, sort of thing. But I think it's interesting when, for those around them, I think they often take on, because Dad was ill at the same time with his foot, wasn't he? So there was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
What do you the pressure? Just try to describe some of the pressure you were feeling, and also what you think you learned from that experience.
Yeah, I didn't feel it as pressure at the time. I made a point of coming to see you every day. I did the natural thing that you normally do when you go into hospital to see someone. I bought a load of packets of sweets.
You did,
to start with. I then unfortunately realised you were nil by mouth for quite a long time. So I ate all the sweets over a period, and you eat them all on
you quite enjoyed.
Just
taking them out of the cupboard.
You won't mind if I have another one. And I'm sorry.
I've bought these ones today.
I'm sorry you can't eat any of them. But sort of joking aside.
But that was humour. It was good.
It was. And it was, so I didn't see it as a pressure. There was no pressure. I mean, you didn't pressure me at all to come and see you every day.
No.
It was something I wanted to do. It made me feel better to sort of see you and check you're all right, and also help you with the agency of being in hospital, because as the patient, you're not always with it. Sometimes taking some reasonably strong medication, you always need someone there to advocate, check in, that they're actually being consistent in their treatment and feeding you, because you were being fed by a tube for a lot of the time.
And whether they'd ordered the right
food, whether they'd got a paracetamol stock in place, whether the nurses
basically you end up running the
hospital.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that I wouldn't say that was, and main anxiety was first finding out about it. That was emotionally the hardest time. And that's also down to naivety on my part, that, an assumption that cancer is effectively a death sentence.
And not only that, but it affects older people, do you think? So it was sort of, because I was in my early 40s.
Go through the whole why, well, not why me, but why you.
Yeah.
And you go through all of those questions, but I'd say that was really early on. Then you get into I'm going to find out about this stuff and I'm going to research, and we've got such wonderful resources now to be able to research and things. Need to take it all with a pinch of salt, because they can lead you down some pretty dark holes.
So so one of the challenges was cancer, and you were saying about the shock of the shock of the diagnosis, but also then the day-to-day treatment coming in every day. How was that, particularly sort of managing the NHS?
So yeah, I think this is really important if you are in hospital, is to try to find anyone that will sort of advocate for you. You were pretty good, because you sort of got other patients on the ward, where either you got them to advocate for you, or you were advocating for them, I think, a lot of the time.
And I had people like Gavin Barwell as well popping in.
That's right.
Sort
You
of
had your various
when the local MP popped in.
Political friends always helps. And, you knew how to maybe speak to the senior management of the hospital and things when things weren't going quite right. So you had the ability to do that. I can imagine there's a lot of people out there who are more lonely, perhaps, don't necessarily have those contacts. So, I sometimes worry to think how they can manage the system, because it's hard. It does take effort and work. I think, just going back, so I didn't find the sort of day-to-day routine of coming to see you was okay. I got to a point where I had to go to a meeting in Cheltenham somewhere, so I wasn't going to be there one night, and so wasn't going to be able to see you for a day. That was probably as hard as anything else, because then I was sort of feeling guilty. Oh no, I'm not gonna.
So the
pressure. I've got to go I've got to go off somewhere. I've got to go to an overnight meeting. I'm not going to see you that day. So those were probably the hardest bit, is breaking the routine and not being able to come and see you.
So coming back, I don't know whether this happened at all, but when I was 7, I had that major operation, and you didn't know when it was going to be, but you were sick at school or something.
Yeah. So yes, you had an operation, a significant operation on your legs when you were 7. In theory, you wouldn't have been able to walk at all if you hadn't had that operation. So very significant. But, and I guess this comes back to the connection potentially of being a twin, which you, as you quite rightly say, I didn't know when that operation was going to be through the day. Mum was trying to keep things as normal for me as possible, even though she was obviously worried about you having this operation. So I just went to school that day as normal. I think I knew you were having the operation that day, but as you say, I didn't know when it was. But as soon as you sort of went under, had your anaesthetic, I got completely sick at school, was taken into the sick bay or whatever they call it at school. And, I think, but I can't remember Mum that was called, because
it was Ian and Bridget, I think.
So yes, friends of my parents called to come and bring me home because I was being sick. So I think there is this connection. There is, everyone, I think, always asks, what it's like to be a twin. And of course, we don't know, because we don't know what it's not like to be a twin, because we've always been a twin. So it's a very difficult question to answer. But I do think there is probably even between you and I, and then Sally and Anthony, who are other older brothers and sisters, there is a different type of relationship that we have compared to others. Even Christelle says, my wife, is we can spend half an hour having a joke and laughing about something. She has not got a clue what it is we're laughing about because we sort of have our own little language.
Yeah.
And even, you know, I mean, you know, when you say a joke, no one can understand what you're saying because you can't help yourself but laughing through it. But I can sort of understand what you're saying and I can almost hear what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to get the words out because I sort of know what you're saying.
It's sort of that, I think when we were growing up, I could say half a sentence and you'd know what
Finish
the other
it
half
off.
was. Anyway.
And now later in life,
so
you go and meet a stranger and ask a series of questions, a small talk, and then I will go up and ask them exactly the same questions.
Exactly.
And if they've not been paying attention,
yeah,
they all say, "You just asked me all those questions." No, actually, that was my identical twin brother who you were just speaking to.
Yeah.
And now I've come along and asked you those.
So I sort of asked, there's something about our brain waves that work in the same way, but that also from that 7-year-old, but also, I don't know, there's something that connects us in a uniquely sort of physical way as well. Which I because it's the question we get asked most often, you know, what's it like to be a twin? And I always give the answer, I don't know. But I just wanted to sort of express to people that yes, there are unique things about being an identical twin, which I can't understand. I don't even, it's what you say about worldview. It's not something I can.
Well, I think it's very special that we have that sort of connectivity. I think ultimately everybody could have that connectivity, but they have to be open to it.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about earlier in terms of
spiritual
opening your mind up, listening to other people, understanding their worldview. I believe it's through that method that you can actually ultimately develop that connectivity. And there's this missing force in the world, which is this connectivity force that probably a lot of our prophecies were alive to and would talk about.
If you come back to Jesus' final prayer before he got on the cross, he's talking about Father, let them all become one as we are one.
That's right.
So I think there is something about actually, yes, identical twins have this oneness, as it were, but there's actually more for identical twins to learn, there's and the rest of the world to learn about how truly to be one. Just one, the last thing I would say about my observation of being a twin, we can fight, we can be horrible to one another. We know how to press one another's buttons better than anybody else, and yet we can do that because we know we're always love. Ultimately, we will always love one another. So you can be tremendous. I know that, when I'm in a bad mood, I can come to you and I can be, in
objectionable.
Really, objectionable, because I know that love won't sort of break. So I think it is interesting, that whole last prayer in John's gospel is all about sort of oneness, but also about there's betrayal as well. There's everything is tied up.
And I think yes. So that connection between identical twins, I think, is stronger. I think it's something that we all should be sort of trying to move towards. And I think, yes, it's great to have that as an identical twin, and I don't have it with anyone else, but you can move towards having that with other people. But it's all about active listening and trying to see the world through their eyes.
That's great. That's brilliant for today, and thank you so much. But what I would like to do is come back to maybe another chat and explore this whole idea of understanding other people's worldview. You know that I always say as well that lifting people's hope and ambition and their worldview are, I think, the 3 keys to life. And I'd love to come back and discuss that with you at some point.
Well, let's sort that out.
Comment, like and subscribe to the channel. Remember, vulnerability is the bridge to better relationships. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.